So again, our meetings are recorded. Uh, do we have, um, since the same people are here, I won't repeat about, oh, and Brian Edgar's here. Great. Um, about how RNOs function, and all our board is here. So the topic tonight that we were going to talk about is old trees in Congress Park and how do you replace those trees so that we maintain our canopy for environmental as well as shade and just comfort reasons. The city has lots of rules, and we all have had or have street trees. So replacing those trees can be complicated. So I want to introduce Brian Edgar, who's here from the City Forestry, and Elon Slutsky, who's a neighbor that helped put this program together with questions. So, Brian, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, and I apologize. My video, for some reason, does not seem to be working. We use Teams a lot, kind of on our side, not so much the Zoom. So I apologize that I'm a blank screen right now, but hopefully everybody can still hear me. I am Brian Edgar. I am the Forestry Inspection Supervisor for the Office of the City Forester. Essentially, one of my main roles and my team's roles is to basically protect the public from trees that can fail. So we enforce what's called Municipal Code 57. If you didn't know it, when you bought a house, you agreed to this big, huge book of all these different municipal codes, and that's one of the ones that's kind of buried inside of it. Um, the main thing, some of the main ones that you kind of need to take away from that is there's one called 57-18, and it is the abutting property owner's responsibility to maintain a public street tree. Uh, that's kind of fancy language that basically says that the city owns the tree and we make you guys take care of them. It's
Okay.
yes, and that would be if a tree has reached the end of life and it is in need of removal. Then that we would either approve a permit to remove the tree, or we give what's called a notice of violation. It is just the language on the notice of violation seems very harsh, but all it is just basically say, hey, we as the foresters have noticed a hazardous situation, whether that be large broken branches or a tree we have determined has reached the end of the life, and has become a risk to the public. And so we do require removal of some trees. Um, we also do require pruning of any dead or dying branches over 2 inches that are located within the canopy. Our main concern is for just public safety. We just don't want large branches or large trees to fall on anybody that would be damaging to life, limb, or property. That's kind of what we're looking for. We only mainly deal with public street trees, but we also sometimes will deal with private trees that can fall into or impact the public right of way or the alley or the street or the sidewalk. We also give notices if we have trees that have a communicable disease, which is very relevant now with emerald ash borer. So if we do see trees that we believe to be infested with emerald ash borer, we do require those trees to be removed to try to save the rest of the ash in that area. Another one of the ones that we tend to have a problem with is a bug that's called Ips. It's an Ips engraver beetle. It affects the spruce trees, generally the large spruce trees that you'll see in the neighborhood. You kind of see that top down death, and it's very, very rapid. We try to get those trees out of there in about 15 days. So it's a pretty short turnaround once you get notified from us to have the tree removed. Um, and then Beyond 5718, which is the responsibility part of it, there is a permit required. So if you do want to remove a tree or plant a tree, a permit is required to do both of those. It is a free permit that you can obtain from our website, from the forestry email box. We can send you links to that, and then when you put that request in, we will either approve or deny the removal or the planting. And then with that is 5771. So if you are going to remove a tree or have any tree work performed in the city, county of Denver, whether it's on a public street tree or a private tree, it is required to have a licensed tree contractor perform the services. So we have a list of all the people that are approved to do the work. Essentially, what we do is we make sure that the people can perform the services using basically the basic skills set to protect the public around them. They know the rules, they know the regulations, they have adequate insurance. So monthly, I pull that list. And if I do not have an updated insurance for any company, they are dropped off the list until they give me their updated insurance. Again, it's kind of more of a way of just making sure that these guys are safe, that they're qualified to perform the services, and that if anything was to unfortunately happen, that they do have insurance to cover any damages that were to occur. Um, let's see, what else? Is there any questions about
Brian,
responsibility at all?
could you circle back
Yeah,
about alley trees?
yeah.
Isn't that the city's responsibility to keep
No,
them clean, clear of power lines?
no. So power lines, all power lines are maintained by Xcel Energy. So anything that's located within 10 feet of a electrical line is only maintained by Xcel Energy. So they actually have a vegetation line that you would call. So the 10 feet there is called a minimum approach distance. So like even during the cases of when we have the big heavy snowfalls in the spring and we got branches laying on power lines, people will generally call the office of the city forester, and I literally can't even get an arborist to touch that because that branch has become electrified. So the only Xcel Energy can actually handle those branches safely without. So basically, the arborist would become electrocuted.
So if a homeowner has concern prior to a storm, they
Mhm.
would call Excel and
Yes,
say,
correct. Yeah, yeah. They
okay,
have a vegetation line. And I can email you that. We have that number. It's basically just the 1-800 number that you would pull from their website. And even in the case when I have these large scale emergencies and we have what we consider tree emergencies, so I'm trying to get one of our emergency tree contractors there to perform the work to make it safe. I have to wait for Xcel Energy to actually clear the branch off before we can make the tree safe. And I don't even get a special number to their access either. They won't give me one. I call the same 1-800 number that everybody else does.
okay.
And I would also like to, oh, go ahead.
I was going to ask Elon if you'd like to start off some of the questions about tree selection and how to choose.
Yeah, I'm just going to just follow up with the emergency thing because
Oh,
that is
I'm
a very,
sorry.
no. It's just a very important aspect. I think people don't know that if a tree emergency contractor is called by the city, that invoice is sent to the property owner. And those invoices can be quite extensive. So it's always best if you can handle the situation yourself or contract that situation yourself because those bills, it's about $500 per hour that all gets billed to a customer, whether it's for a broken branch or a tree that's fallen into the street or broken branch above a sidewalk, things like that. And it's based within my municipal code that I actually have to send those invoices. So just putting that out there that it is always best to, but there are situations where it is a hazard and we do need to use emergency services sometimes. So just to clear the roadways for emergency vehicles, fire trucks, ambulances, things like that, large broken limbs that could fall and kill somebody when they're over on like a roadway. So there are sometimes unfortunate situations that we do have to do that.
So once you write an invoice, then the homeowner
Yeah.
will be charged.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
It is. It's in the code. It's 57-27, unfortunately. So, and it is. I think sometimes people call us thinking that it's going to be a free service because it fell into the street, and that is not the case. It's still the abutting property owner's responsibility.
Okay.
Yeah, something to. Yeah, I know because you guys have large mature trees, and sometimes those
Yeah.
can fall down, and it can be quite expensive. So that's kind of the bad things. Those are the bad things that I do when I get to pass on the bills so that to constituents and property owners. But we did have some questions about street tree planting and succession planting, and I can gladly answer those as well.
Tom, did you have a question?
I did, Vicki, thank you. Um, Brian, can you tell me, is the Emerald Ash Borer been detected in Congress Park?
Yes, it has been.
Uh, can you,
I believe actually Congress Park was ground zero for us.
yeah, yeah,
14th and I don't know right offhand, but it is definitely in Congress Park. Yes. If you do have a tree of size, it's something to consider, especially if it is, a quality tree worth keeping. I would definitely recommend working with an arborist that performs what's called plant health care. And they can help you to make a decision on whether the tree is worth keeping, not worth keeping. There are different options. There's injecting trees and bark banding trees and soil. All have different levels of efficacy and different time spans, but they are all tools in the toolbox for helping to take care of that emerald ash borer. So I would recommend at this time to treat all ash trees in the city, county, and Denver if you'd like to keep them alive.
Okay.
And we
Let's,
do treat some public right-of-way trees, though. So I will say that we do roughly like 1,500 trees per year. We have been scaling the program back. We've had some budget reductions over the last couple of years. We are moving some of the budget into removing very poor ash trees, just to do what's called phloem reduction and get rid of poor trees so they can't vector disease. But we still are in the process of doing that. So anytime somebody, if you think your tree is being treated or you want to know, you can just reach out. We can let you know. We only treat trees that are over 15 inches in DBH currently.
do you have to request it?
No, we have. So this is actually, we just completed our 10th year of our program. So we have been treating quite a bit of trees over the past couple of years. Um, so a lot of trees have already completed their third cycle because we treat every 3 years. So there's been many trees that if you see there's like a little sticker that gets put on the side of like the street side that says be a smart ash, that means that tree was being treated at some point in time.
Could you talk about succession planting,
Yeah.
timing, placement, particularly for homes that have 100-year-old street trees?
Yeah, and a lot of the trees that you would probably be referring to would be silver maples, Siberian elms. Those would be the ones that you start kind of looking at and you might have a little bit of concern with. Especially the Siberian elms can have a bit of branch dropping. But typically, just because a tree is older or maybe it needs some pruning doesn't necessarily mean it's in a state of failure. It doesn't mean that it's structurally unsound. So I think if you're kind of thinking about doing a succession planning, the first thing I would do would be to reach out to the inspector for the area. And you can find that on our map on the office of the city forester. If you don't know that one, you can always just reach out to forestry@denvergov.org, and we could be directing those emails. That's always a good place to start, and then they can kind of help you decide whether that tree is in need of a succession planting or not. Because typically, once we start the process of a succession planting, once we've agreed to plant a tree, with essentially breaking our rules and regulations of our distance guidelines, that we will have a plan to remove that tree at a certain point in time. So we're going to say this silver maple has reached a point in time where it will need to go in 5 years. So we will start a new tree. So you're kind of looking about that 5 to 7 year point in time for a succession planting because you want to create that microclimate for the new tree, but you also don't want the old tree to impact the new tree. So at that point in time, you've already decided that tree, the older tree is going to go, and it will be a predetermined time. We'll actually make a work record for that. And then the new tree will be given time to start growing. And then as it continues to grow, then in that 5 to 7 year mark, we will require the removal of the older tree.
Does the are are you suggesting the succession planting would also be a street tree?
I only deal with street trees. We don't have much engagement on private property. If you are thinking about private property, I would kind of use that same theory in mind. Because essentially, by the time it takes about 3 years for establishment of the newly planted tree, and then you want about another 2 years of growth, and it's going to benefit. The idea of the succession planting is that that tree gets to have a little bit of a microclimate, so it's not kind of thrown out into the world of the harsh sun and the UV and the winds and all the things that we have. So it's going to live under the canopy of the dying tree, and then you would be removing the older tree. You would have probably a little bit more leeway because it is your private property. So we wouldn't tell you when to remove that tree. We only deal with the public right away.
Okay, because one possible, I'm a landscape architect.
Uh-huh.
So one possible solution that I chose to exercise is I have 100-year-old silver maples.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So planting on the health strip is impossible. So, but I was able to plant in my front yard so that my exposure is west. When I lose my street trees, the west side of my house will be much hotter. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, when you guys are planting on your private property, that it helps my goal because it helps to bring up our urban canopy as a whole, right? It's just we just don't
right.
have as much control over those spaces. And generally, we recommend to anybody on our approved contractor list that does the planting, they can really help you make those decisions. We do have a lot of very, very good arborists on there that you can work with, and then they would be able to help and say, hey, this is what I think we should do, or this is what I think we should go with, and they would be able. That kind of steps more in their private property world. So,
But they could give you
yeah,
advice.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I
Do
mean, if the
you,
inspector's in the area, he'd be able to help kind of determining, well, this silver maple, they could sound the tree, they could look for signs or symptoms of, what kind of internal decay are they seeing inside there. All of my inspectors currently on my team all have a ISA track certification, which is tree risk assessment qualification. So I believe in all their skills to kind of help make that determination of, yeah, we're kind of thinking, or this tree is in really good shape, all it needs a prune, so maybe what you kind of see as maybe a sick or an old tree might not be quite as bad as you think. I mean, there's a lot of
right,
things you can mitigate through pruning. It
right.
is it is recommended to prune a tree every 3 to 5 years, which I'll be totally honest, not many people are doing that. That adds up quite a bit really fast, and it can be quite expensive. If you can do it every 5 years or 7 years, I think your tree will be much better off, and will be able to weather many, many storms.
Yeah, and prolong
Yes,
life.
correct.
Can
Yep.
you talk about tree varieties, good choices, and in particular, bad ones?
Yeah. So I'll just go ahead and say one really bad one, which is one of our trees that is not allowed to be planted in our right of way, is the autumn blaze maple. Seems to be one of the most favorite trees that every nursery tries to push to everybody. It's a fast growing tree. It's got that great fall color. It's basically when you go out to like the Lowry area, you see all those beautiful red trees that looked really magical a couple of months ago. The problem that we find is they grow to about 15 dBH in about 25 years, and then they fall over. So you
Oh,
put all this effort in, and they'll never really become that really nice mature tree. We do have an approved street tree list, which I would say that street tree, any of those trees that are on that list would do very, very well in private property as well. Obviously, with private property, you can get away with a little bit more fun trees. That could be, there's a couple different kinds of. Well, okay, redbud is even approved on ours, but There's a couple of box elders out there right now. You know, the Sensation box elder, I think, is a pretty fun tree, and it has some promise, but it has not been approved for us currently. But I think any of those trees would be die hard. They'd be hardy. They'd be great trees. Currently, right now, our most successful trees, our fastest growing, and the ones that seem to have our highest rate after planting of survival is our elms. Are doing really, really great.
Huh.
Sometimes elms are a little too they grow a little too fast, and sometimes they can have all the same issues that the Siberian elms have, right? So they get a little bit weak wooded as they get older. You know, pagoda trees grow really, really fast. They're great trees more in the landscape because they do suffer from branch shedding. They're kind of weak wooded. I prefer oaks, but you also, you know, we have to make sure that we're always trying to keep that diversity inside the landscape. We don't want, you know, every single person running out and planting every oak just in case for that next round of that next insect that's going to come through. We currently don't have oak wilt here. It is one of the diseases that we are on the watch for. It hasn't left Kansas area quite yet. So,
How do you
yeah,
feel about aspen?
aspens do not want to live at this altitude. If you want an
Just
aspen,
wanted to
you're gonna have to
bring,
go look. Yeah, you're gonna have to go move up to about conifer area. They really just want to be more at that like 7,000 up kind of. What they will do is similar to an autumn blaze maple. They will grow for a little while, for about 8 years or so. They get to be about, you know, just about the time where you're getting out of from choking it to kind of getting into hugging it, and then they just die. And then also now your neighbors will have aspen trees, and you will have many, many aspen trees because they will sucker from every single root system available. So they're definitely not for this location. Yeah, it'd be better to go with more of like a birch tree if you're looking for that kind of a look. You know,
okay.
you'd have to kind of like, again, working with a good nursery, you're kind of describing what you want, and then hopefully they'll be able to put you in a tree that has similar characteristics but is more appropriate for our climate and our altitude.
Do you recommend those? It's basically a slow irrigation system, the green bag that
Yeah,
zippers.
yeah, we do. The only thing that we tend to find that is a bad thing with the irrigation bags is that people think that they look full and they don't actually go out and pick them up. Because there's many times like we pick up the tree, like on our, we hand out a lot of bags for our right-of-way trees, and people just forget to, they're like, oh, it looks really, really full, but it's really empty. So just remembering to fill it up. Winter watering is another thing that is very, very important that I think people forget about because they have a tree with no leaves on it. We do recommend winter watering. So about roughly 15 to 20 gallons per month, depending, because we do get those really hot, dry Januaries. We don't have any snow, and we're really trying to keep those fine feeder roots alive. And they will add for quite a bit of success going into that next spring season. And yeah, water, water, water. I can't preach it enough when it comes to establishing a tree, growing a tree. I mean, even your large mature trees being, we get those, you know, long, dry weeks or months in January, February, getting a nice slow trickle with the hose out around the tree base on those warmer 40, 50-degree days would really, really help.
Brian, we didn't really talk about evergreens. What is your position on an evergreen as a street tree? Um, how do the city foresters feel about that?
Yeah, so evergreens are prohibited in the right of way. They're not allowed.
Okay, you
Easy
just
answer.
will stop that.
Yeah. I see there's a hand up here. Charlotte, did you have a question?
Yes. So, just in general, what's the distance between trees that's allowed in the public right of way there?
It varies kind of dependent upon the species that you're looking to plant. So, like a filbert tree, you can plant a little closer than like a bur oak, right? So, the general rule of thumb is it's between. It's actually on our website. Let me see if I can pull it up right now. It is. It is. I just had them all pulled up. So we just recently just changed these. We actually did a really good job with our We just rolled out our brand new street tree list. There's a planting guide in there. There's a whole bunch of really fun stuff that we just finished up this year that I'm pretty proud of. So between your shade trees, it would be 25 to 40 feet. And between your ornamentals, it's 15 to 25.
40 feet. That's the whole width of a property line.
Proper,
By far.
yeah.
Yes, that's all we can get. And then you also get into the we have to be a minimum of 5 feet off of water lines, gas lines. You can't be within sight triangles. We have to be 20 feet away from a stop sign, 10 feet off of an alley. There is a whole list of distances. So actually, if you were to obtain a permit, so if you wanted to plant a street tree, when you get your permit, the inspector actually comes out and he places a white mark where the tree goes. Sometimes people don't really like that mark, but that's based upon all of our minimum distances that are required.
So that's very interesting because interesting isn't the right word I was thinking of, but we'll leave it at
There
that.
are many trees that are grandfathered into the system. So
Yeah,
there are many trees that don't abide by those rules currently.
Well, yeah, good. But in order to maintain the canopy, then, would you really consider that maybe you're causing the loss of trees by those, like 40 feet between when in fact our, I'm looking in Congress Park, I'm not talking about Polo Club or something here, where people might want to have closer trees because that's what has been here in our neighborhood. And yeah, some of the silver maples, rot right out. And then nobody can replant them because of these kinds of rules and their property lines and their water lines. I guess it sounds very bureaucratic to make those, I understand you make rules, but is there some consideration of what it takes to keep a canopy in an established neighborhood like Congress Park?
Well, again, the 40 foot is that maximum line. So generally, we're planting most shade trees we plant on 30 foot apart. You
Okay.
can do an understory canopy between there, so you could have another ornamental tree that could be at 15 feet from that other shade tree, and then another 15 feet you would have your shade tree. So then you're in that 30 foot, you're essentially having 3 trees, if that makes sense. It's just what we found is best for the health of the trees. It is all related to the design aspects. And yes, there is many rules and regulations based upon what we can and can't do. And then you also add into the fact that the Sidewalk 307 program now through Dottie is expanding all sidewalks to 5 feet minimum. So there will be heavy tree impacts in that as well.
Oh, so I guess there's a lot of things kind of working against it. I'm thinking, and I don't want to, I'm using my own house.
Yeah, that's fine.
Because I was just informed by my arborist that my honey locust is dying.
Thyronectria, probably.
Yeah. And so in terms of what you were saying, maybe establish a new tree before that happens.
Mhm.
Seems like there's no place to do that.
Well, when it comes to a succession planting, we will not. We're essentially saying that honey locust will no longer be there. So we will actually plant that tree probably about 6 foot away from the honey locust, as long as it still meets all the other criteria, the gas lines and the water lines and stop signs, all that kind of thing. But we are essentially, once we start a succession planting, we have determined that the honey locust will no longer be there. So we're not trying to keep that 30-foot mark. Does that make sense?
Yeah, okay. See, that clarifies.
Yeah. We're massaging the rules when it comes to that, because we're saying, this tree has thyronectria, it is going to die. Thyro is one of those things that even once you prune the tree, it looks really great for about 3 or 4 years, and it just kind of dies off, unfortunately. And almost every honey locust in City County of Denver has thyro to some degree.
So I was informed.
Yeah.
I already lost my massive black walnut tree. It was
thousand canker disease. That was an awful one. That wiped through and destroyed. I think there's only about 4 walnut trees that I can think of in the City County of Denver. There's not many.
Before that, it was
Wow.
my elm tree
Yeah.
in the back. So I'm trying to figure out how to
Yeah.
even have a canopy. So that's all.
Yeah, sorry about that. But yes, we would massage those rules knowing that that tree would basically be going away.
Thank you.
Brian,
Yes, go
if
ahead.
someone plants a tree without a permit that's not approved, are you just out driving around and you see it?
Yes. So the inspectors all drive their district. They try to see every tree twice in a year. So we try to see trees with leaves on and trees with leaves off. So that is the ideal situation. Obviously, between handling all the 311s, the planning permits, a lot of the other things we're dealing with, sometimes we're not seeing everything exactly twice in a year. If we do discover the newly planted tree is one of the things. It is required to have a permit. We could require the removal of the tree. If we do find a newly planted autumn blaze maple, we will require the removal of that tree. And they can pick it up and they can plant it right in their front yard, but they can't have it in the public right away. So we would require removal. Now, let's say somebody planted an oak and they planted it in a perfect spot. Would we make them remove it just to remove it? Case by case basis, I would probably say likely not, but we do require a lot of removals of unpermitted trees.
Tom, you have a question?
I do, thank you. Again, what was the distance from planting a tree to a gas line?
That would be 5 feet minimum, but we prefer 10.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have other questions? John?
How are you dealing with fiber in the right of way?
So we have, are you talking about like installing it?
Well, that's already been installed, let's say.
So
They have maps that they've supplied, forestry or
they should. Are they? No. I've caught a couple of companies installing it, and I have stopped work because technically they are not allowed to injure or damage the tree. So they can't just cut through all the root system. So essentially, what we don't want to have happen is if they cut down the line, they sever roots, tree falls over is my main concern. Similar to installing new curbs, new sidewalks. Currently, the Office of the City Forrester is working with Dottie on the sidewalk removal and replacement repair and replacement program. So we go and look at every single sidewalk. What can we do to mitigate any damages to a tree best we can? We have a couple of different options. Our last option is to remove the tree. Prior to that would be cutting of any roots. So we try to do almost anything and everything we can prior to that situation. So with fiber, we try to catch them in the act and give them a fine, essentially. Yeah, I've caught a handful of companies, so it's basically kind of company basis. So if you see somebody injuring or damaging trees, by all means, reach out to the Office of the City Forester, and I can get a generally inspector or somebody over there to stop work and ensure that they are not damaging the tree.
Because there was also a couple of big dust ups in Congress Park up by the park a couple of years ago when I can't remember if it was Verizon or somebody else was putting in their localized towers. And they were violating the mandated setback or separation distance from existing trees. And
park trees actually have even more protection than right-of-way trees in a way. They have larger distances they require to be protected within that drip line. Essentially, they go all the way to the drip line with their protections. That's an impossibility for a street tree because by the time that the tree grows up and becomes mature, it's over the sidewalk, it's over the street. That's the entire drip line right there. That basically means you wouldn't be able to do any work at all.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Okay.
Do we have other questions?
I had a few more questions.
Yeah.
John, I was curious about planting trees. Just a couple more questions on,
Yeah.
get ready to install a new tree. I was curious about mulching around the base of the tree, if that's recommended and why we do
Oh yeah,
that.
yeah, definitely.
Fertilizing was another question I had about planting trees. Should we plan on fertilizing them? And I think I had one more question here. Oh, and then what time of year should we be putting in our new trees?
Yeah, so there is some restrictions for your public right-of-way trees and when you can plant. We do have a window in the spring and a window in the fall. We don't allow, unless there's very specific circumstances, we generally don't allow planting in the heat of the summer, just because we want that tree to have the most success possible, right? So spring and fall are your best times to plant trees, not the winter or the summer. Um, and then when it comes to mulching, definitely recommend, like a 3-inch mulch layer all the way out to the drip line. With a lot of, these tree lawn spaces, people say, well, I don't want grass out there because grass doesn't do well, especially if you have a large mature tree. So I tend to recommend coming in with something else, maybe a native grasses or some smaller ground covers. There's many, like a purple cone flowers and things like that that will do very, very well in those spaces. And then it's even better for the tree because then it's not, they're not competing back and forth, and it's just an overall better situation. So yes, mulch is highly recommended. And then also when you are watering, just make sure you're getting the water through the mulch. Some of the fines and things. I will say that it is, and I'm going to say this in quotations, required for gorilla hair is the only acceptable mulch in the right of way. Now, if you were to put hardwood mulch out there, I'm definitely not going to say anything about it. I actually prefer hardwood mulch. But officially, I'll take the stance of Dottie, which is gorilla hair is the only official hardwood mulch to be used in those spaces. Rock is also not allowed per Dottie rules and regulations.
Why?
Uh,
Because the Botanic Gardens.
that is not a rock. That is a squeegee, which has been quasi allowed. But again, I can't speak to Dottie's rules. We don't allow fabric. It is against our rules and regulations. So no landscape fabric is allowed underneath the drip line of trees because it reduces the water to get to the root system, essentially. It also, when mulch is breaking down, it's just breaking down on top of that weed fabric and it's not actually incorporating any organic matter into the soil. When it comes to rock, that is, again, that's Dottie. That's not Office of the City Foresters regulations, but that is what's in theirs. We do stop people if they're trying to install rock within our drip lines. So that would be injuring and damaging the tree.
Okay.
Changing the soil pH, compaction, heat, lack of water, because there's always a barrier that's placed there, just all the things like that.
Okay.
And then I was curious about, I think you hit on it a second ago. How about native trees? I drive out to the airport, I see the prairie on the way to the airport and think, this is what all of Denver was like. So is there such a thing as a native tree? Obviously, I think a lot of us have heard about the benefits of native plants, but how should we be thinking about that when it comes to trees?
So there is no true native tree to Denver, Colorado, other than the cottonwood trees that used to grow along some of the riparian areas. Essentially, this is a steppe climate, so we're equal to like Mongolia. So a very difficult area to grow trees. Every tree that is here has to have the help of us to help give it supplemental water. If you do not supplement or water a tree, at least especially during its establishment period, you will not have it. That being said, since there is no native tree, the thing that I like more is a resilient tree. Trees that can take our harsh growing environments, like the Texas red oaks seem to do pretty well. Finding trees that are adapted to a similar climate that will be able to take our 70-degree days in our January, our 60-degree temperature drops that happen overnight in the fall or in the spring sometimes, cool nights, warm days, heavy snow. We just really want a resilient tree more than anything.
Fantastic. And then you mentioned, I think for us in Congress Park, right, because so many of our trees are about 100 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And as folks drive around, I think you had mentioned Siberian elm.
Mm-hmm.
You had mentioned the silver maples. We had mentioned the honey locust. Which of the other, if we have like big mature trees that look like they're getting on, are there particular tree species we should be more attentive to?
I think the London planes seem to do well if they can kind of get through their kind of an initial establishment phase, and once they start to get to enter that like once it gets like the 15-20 year market, it generally won't get what's called anthracnose. Usually younger in its life, the anthracnose will take it out. But if it can kind of get to that point in time, I think it can be a very, very good tree for this environment. Very majestic looking, great branching habits. There's a bunch of the oaks that do really well, the chinkapin oaks, the bur oaks. And you can still see some of those around town that are large, mature trees that were planted back in the 60s, 70s that now are well established, and they are just magnificent looking trees. Um,
Can you comment on a
yeah,
catalpa?
I love a catalpa tree. That's one of those ones that, it's one of the trees that I can't really think of anything that will generally kill it. There's not really much pest or disease that attack it. Gets that nice, beautiful spring flower, the big leaves. It's got a cool growing habit. It's been a very resilient tree for us and does very, very well. It is a very hard sell in a nursery because it does look like a stick when you first get it, which also brings me into another tree, which is one of my favorite trees, which is a Kentucky coffee tree. Again, bomb-proof tree. It just looks very, very much like a sad little Charlie Brown stick. But as it grows up, it becomes quite the majestic tree over time. I mean, there's one at the zoo. I used to be the arborist at the zoo, so that's why I know this. It's about 75 foot tall, huge, I mean, canopy spread, 30, 40 foot, 60, 70 foot tall. It's just an absolutely beautiful tree. And also, I just can think of no pest or disease that take it out. Those are the kind of trees I like, things that just you can't kill.
Yeah. I thought a hackberry was native.
Not native. Again, there is no true native to the Denver, Colorado area. And the reason why we have so many Siberian elms is because kind of back in like the 1914s and kind of in through the 1930s, there was actually a big planting projects that used to go on where Siberian elm was just one of those trees. It grew fast, it established, it actually grew here. It was able to get a canopy in a town that had zero canopy. There's actually old photos of a wagon going around and throwing out these bushels of bare root trees to the Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts that were planting them all over town. Some pretty cool old archive photos. Again, a Siberian elm it's not approved anymore. It's not what I would say a highly desired species amongst most people. But if you prune them and you prune them regularly, I do think it can still be quite a beneficial tree to the community. Because those large trees, I mean, essentially, we're not even getting any benefits from as a community, or the birds, the bees, all the different things, the air and the water benefits that tree's providing. We generally won't get those for 18 to 20 years. So it takes a while too. That's why the replacement of a young tree over a large tree is it's not quite the same.
Do we have more questions?
Brian, just as a point of clarification of something you said a while ago,
Huh?
am I correct that, or did I hear you correctly, that if I want to take a tree down in my backyard, I have to get in touch with forestry and get a permit for that now?
No, only public right-of-way trees.
Okay.
Yeah. Private trees you can do with as you would like. It is your your private property. If you ever kind of need second opinions, sometimes if we have time or capacity, we can give second opinions. We generally are pretty full with most of our time. I think finding getting at least 3 quotes and talking to arborists that are qualified to give you the best recommendation on whether a tree does need to go or not is best. Sometimes I have seen some people pruning trees that I don't think should have been pruned. They should have been removed. Sometimes you can't hang on to a tree forever. Unfortunately, all things will reach a point in time where they have reached the end of life. But you are required to use a licensed tree contractor, and that is just for the safety of the public, and it is required in our municipal code.
Brian, thank you very much for
Yeah, sure.
spending your evening.
Hey, no problem at all. I like talking trees, and I know that we do have a lot of rules and regulations. They are in place for a reason. I know sometimes when they are applied in a way, sometimes they can feel overbearing. but they are in place, and I do assure you that it is for the greater good of the community as a whole. And if you do have any questions about anything forestry related, especially when it comes to the public right-of-way trees, please feel free to either reach out to myself or to our general email box, which is forestry@denvergov.org. And we can always get your questions directed to the appropriate party. One other thing I will say, there is a lot of development that goes on throughout the city. So a lot of those developments do roll through forestry. If you do see something where somebody is injuring, damaging a tree, because we do have certain protections and front setbacks, you're saying, hey, this is a beautiful old tree. What's going on? These guys are damaging it. Leo, then we can, uh-oh. Oh, everybody's there. Sorry, my dog knocked off my power cord there. If you do see kind of these large developments going on, sometimes they are not acting correctly as land developers, and sometimes they could get fines for injuring and damaging large mature trees that are located within your community. So always reach out. If you ever have a question, just reach out. We're here to help.
Thank you. And
Yeah.
all that's good to know. The City Forrester is a department in the city that functions really well.
We do get the thing that most 311s come to us because we're at least people that do respond. So sometimes we get a
Yes.
lot of things that aren't really our problem, but we'll at least try to find the correct avenue for where those questions should go.
Well, we appreciate your time and
Yeah, no problem.
information.
Right.
Congress Park's got a lot of old trees and people that care. So thank you for coming.
Thank you guys for having concerns about trees, and thanks for inviting me. Really appreciate it.
Take care.
All right. Have a good night.
Thank you. Good night.
All right, bye.
Um, the rest of our meeting is just kind of an update. Um, Maggie mentioned earlier, you'll be receiving an email if you're a member with the ballots. So please vote. Part of the RNO, our relationship with the city, is that we have to show them that we have participating members, that we're sharing information, that we follow certain standards that are laid out in the municipal code. So please participate and look for that ballot. If anyone has time to volunteer for a paper route, we have several newsletter routes that it would just be great if someone could pick that up for a while. It's a great way to get to know your neighborhood. Um, our next meeting is February 18th, so please join us then. We'll give you an update on the trash situation, and it's possible that unlocking housing choices may have met again by then. Any questions that neighbors have, please feel free to reach out to the board and we'll do what we can to help you. I want to thank everyone for coming tonight. Have a happy holiday season. Um, and we look forward to seeing you in February.
Vicki, one quick announcement.
Yeah.
Tomorrow night is the 12th Avenue tree lighting
Oh,
at
thank you.
Madison Street.
Thank you.
So, yeah, there was some confusion that it was last week, but it's actually tomorrow night.
I wondered why that tree, I saw him put lights up and then it wasn't lit. So tomorrow night. So visit the merchants. I'm sure they're offering hot chocolate,
Yes.
right? And different things. Anything else that folks want to announce? Okay. Thanks again for coming. The meeting's recorded. You can get it on the website. And I look forward to seeing people in February.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.